I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
I was an 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
Let's
let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to turn.
Let's not act like children.
Let's not act like children. Strong words from the former president as he and the president sparred over golf during the debate. And while they might have gone tit for tat at some points, the question still remains. Which candidate is appealing to young voters? For more insight on that, I'm now joined by Wyatt Sharpe, a 15-year-old journalist who was in Atlanta covering the debate. Wyatt, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I know you. I follow you. We've met. You've interviewed many politicians in your career so far. You were in the spin room last night. What's your take on last night's debate?
Yeah, I think certainly the kind of mood in the spin room rather was that it did not go as expected for the Biden campaign and for President Biden. And an indication of that, I guess, would be the actual spinners themselves who came out and spoke on behalf of each campaign in the spin room. The Trump campaign had everyone in the spin room that was, in Atlanta with their campaign, upwards of probably 10 to 15 surrogates in that room, whereas the Biden campaign, they had one person that was kind of circulating around for the night, and that was really it. And so, a lot of people were kind of questioning why that was. And obviously the answer is fairly simple, the fact that they didn't have a great night, and so they don't necessarily want to get a bunch of questions about kind of where the future lies. A lot of people were asking some of the Republicans in the spin room last night about whether or not they are confident that the Democrats, will actually continue to go with President Biden in 2024. Given that is something that we've heard from Republicans, that in the lead up to the Democratic National Convention, for example, there's the possibility of an open convention. And so certainly a lot to watch for. And I think last night really only sparked some of these conversations. And it's not just from Republicans that are saying that, even, progressives and Democrats are admitting that as well.
Absolutely. And there were some topics that weren't brought up, like student loan debt. Usually that's a topic that really resonates with young voters. Who do you think better appeals to young voters, the youth vote, at least from last night?
I mean, it's interesting if we're looking at the polls. The polls suggest that the majority of Americans, not just Gen Z and, millennials, don't really like either one of these two candidates. And, they're looking for kind of a new generation of leadership. And so if we're thinking about it from that perspective, it's almost as if young people are kind of being forced to choose between kind of the lesser of two evils, so to speak. And so, I think in many cases, President Biden doesn't carry as much baggage as someone like former President Trump. But I do think that former President Trump has been able to adapt to things like TikTok, for example, which is obviously a platform predominantly occupied by young people, and really trying to spread his message and connect with young people. So each campaign is kind of taking the necessary steps to appeal to young people. It just realistically, one's 81 years old, one's 78 years old. They aren't necessarily in the prime of their life, so to speak, cognitively speaking. And so I think young people who were tuning into last night, you heard the clip about them talking about golf. Young people were wanting to hear some, substance and some policy discussion about things like you mentioned, student loan debt, the cost of living, which was mentioned. But, people would have liked to hear more about that as opposed to conversations about golf, for example.
I couldn't agree more. And I am not a young voter, but I'm with you there, Wyatt Sharpe. I always appreciate our conversations. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. Also, don't forget to click that red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.